I should hate men.
That's a powerful statement. What?
I've been abandoned, neglected, I've been ghosted, but I just have this unshakable faith that there is an aligned partner for me.
What do you think you have to face and work through at this moment to call on the right person?
I think I have to honor the sacred aloneness that I'm in right now. I felt alone laying beside somebody. I think what I need to face is the loneliness. I need to face my impulses of the things I normally would run from, but that I feel called to. And I don't think my man's on a dating app. If nothing changed today, would you stay? If he's going to be exactly like this in another 5, 10, 20 years, would you still be in it? And if you can answer that question with yes, then you're with your person. If you have even a shadow of a doubt, it's a no. And it's time to pack up your things and go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the New Age Sage podcast. I'm today here with my sister, Chelsea, who has a lot of important and powerful wisdom and gnosis to share with you all. You know, sometimes I go into this from a place of coaching or helping, but it really seems like she really has it all put together. So I'm just going to listen mostly and kind of guide to bring the best out of her. So let's begin with Chelsea. What's strong in your heart right now in this moment? What's really speaking to you?
This season of my life, and to speak from my experience, I'm a psychic medium, I'm a spirit artist, I'm a tarot reader, and I am in my hermit year, which is aligned with the collective year 9, a year of endings and closure, tower moments. And this year has been about relationships ending, about reclamation and rebuilding for myself. And what's felt so alive in my heart is understanding love, understanding my own femininity, and trying to call in my most aligned partner, and the challenges that come with being a psychic medium in dating, and understanding the collective experience around dating right now, and that so many of us are struggling. And it's really hard to navigate social media and connecting with people, and actually connecting with people on a deeper level than a surface level, and what it really means to be a spiritual woman in this world of dating. It's really challenging. And where I'm at this week, even, like, I feel like I've even pulled myself out of that energy and just said, like, no more dating apps. Like, I've really tried to just focus on myself right now and calling that in energetically.
Okay. Yeah, you're speaking to something I want to touch on, which is that, you know, it's a common experience I see where, you know, I'm not the most social person. I don't like most people. That's my work to do. But I'll go to a gathering, and then, like, a friend of mine has a gathering, and all the men, to put it as kind as I can, but I'm gonna put it truthfully, they're all duds in the sense that there's no depth. They're just surface level masculine, you know, BS talking about sports and, you know, what you call it, and a little depth, maybe some experience psychedelics. But then the women are badasses. They're deep. They really know what's going on. And I'm always like, what the f are these women doing with these guys? And the issue is that my wife will make a new female friend, and then she's awesome, and then I'm left with a husband. And I'm like, oh God. I'm not saying I bash or hate on men, but it's just like I notice this, like, deep disparity in that these spiritual women carry this insane depth, and then they just end up staying with men who just can't match that. And then they just, I don't know what's going on in their minds, but I imagine it's like, this is as good as they can get. If they have money and they're nice and they can provide for me and take care of my child, then I'll ignore the depth. But that's something they kind of settle for, I guess. But deep down in their hearts, I can see psychically that they just are just the thought, this is as good as they can get. I'm speaking to that because I see it all the time. And when we speak on that is that, what does that bring to mind for you? What the experience I just said, that there's all these badass women with these men who are just touching the surface.
The first thing I think about is I went on a date with someone, and I could see the openness and the curiosity there. And the more that I see when men try to see past me aesthetically, you know, I always think to myself, like, the way that I look is the least interesting thing about me. There's so much more here. And all I'm really seeking is curiosity. Because if you can be curious, then we have somewhere to go with this, right? And I had this man tell me, you're like the girl in class that ruins the curve for everybody, and I'm going to fail the test. And then he ghosted me and never talked to me again. And I was like, I am a girl that maybe ruins the curve, but, like, can you rise to the occasion? I think most women just really, we're not asking for to meet the next guru. We're not asking to meet the most spiritually awake man that's ever walked this earth. In fact, we're so open to helping and aiding in that expansion, but I feel like there's this like limit. There's this ceiling, and it's not my job to break you past that ceiling within yourself. I can usher you to it, but I can't force you through it. Does that make sense?
Okay, that's an important topic. I think it's an important place for women listening, especially is that, you know, I came into my marriage when I thought, you know, pretty cockily, I'm so awake, you know, I know everything, you know, not very intelligent of me. And then thankfully, intuitively, she showed me where I was severely lacking, where I was still stuck in fear, where I was not in my I call my king energy. I was still stuck in the consciousness of the little boy, which is beautiful and fine, but not, you know, your wife doesn't want to date a boy, she wants to date the man. So I'm saying that it's like, but she tells me now that she knew I had like my minimum was like very good. There's places to go that you see I had to grow in, but she said, right now he's very good, right? So why I'm asking that is that what's the minimum level of consciousness or potential that a woman can accept without going into caretaking, without going into like fixing him and doing the whole daddy projection thing of daddy couldn't be the man for me, so I need him to be the man for me. So what's like the minimum of a man that a woman should be like, okay, this is fair.
Let me start by saying, like, I've done the perfect wifey without ever being the wife. I've been the house caretaker, doing the dishes, making dinner, being maid, mommy, whore. Well, I filled those roles. Doesn't matter how perfect I ever was, it never landed me with my partner. When it comes to the minimum at this point now is just like honesty, compassion, empathy, curiosity. Like that is the biggest thing because if someone is willing to ask questions and willing to peel back layers and not just making me do all that work, I think where so many women are, I don't want to say settling because I just feel like that's not necessarily what this is. It's trying to meet people where they're at. I think a lot of women really want to be able to meet men where they're at. But at the same moment, that minimum has to have curiosity. And I have not found that.
Expand on that curiosity. So the minimum has to be curiosity. What does that mean?
For example, like in relationships, romantic or platonic, we help each other undress in vulnerability. I ask a question, you ask a question. And I think a lot of women find when we go on dates, it's like we're asking all the questions. We're the ones that are curious. And it's like, man, these great guys love to be the interviewed, but they don't want to be the questioner. And I wonder, like, why don't they want to know? Because the more that they would know, the more they would have to meet themselves. The more questions they
Mhm.
ask, the more they have to ask themselves those questions. When like to give men a little bit of slack and a little bit of a break, I think our society isn't that curious about men. I think we're like, oh, they like sports and they're a dude and and then that's it. And we don't push. I just notice when I have had male friends or male connections, people seem to want to dig into that curiosity with women. But I find that, like with men, and especially in male to male relationships, it's not like, what's alive in your heart today? It's how'd the game go last night? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a pretty sort of there's an incapacity for vulnerable intimacy. There's a lot of hard-guardedness. So what I want to ask you is that is there faith in you that that kind of man is out there, or is it becoming disheartening for you in this experience?
You know, I should hate men. I
Okay,
should.
that's a powerful statement. Why?
I've been abused. I've been raped. I've been abandoned, neglected. I've been ghosted. Any way a man could hurt. I've been mugged twice and never lost a dollar. Just saying. But there's all these ways I've been hurt by men and not should have put up so much armor around my heart. In fact, I love to use the word should here. It's the optimal word. Spirit always tells me never say should because it's expecting a certain outcome. But I just have this unshakable faith that there is an aligned partner for me. And I kind of feel like this conversation here is also me manifesting that. This moment right now is me saying out into the world, like, my heart is still open. Do I feel a little disheartened? Is the hope a little bit smaller? Yeah, yeah, I have to admit, but I don't have a loss of faith because of there are good men in my life. They're not my partner, but I have this sweetest little brother who's doing therapy, who's doing his shadow work, who's high functioning autistic and still has this yearn for love and connection. And that gives me hope. And I think about my gay best friend, Oscar, who's married to the love of his life, who still spends time with me and has that vulnerability and that capacity. And so it's like I have these strong male examples that it's there. I just haven't found that in partnership. Though I have not been on a date with someone or been in a relationship with someone who could actually match my vulnerability.
Breaks my heart to hear you've had those experiences, and thank you for sharing. Um, what I'm curious about is you've had all those experiences, yet you say you still have faith in men. You still believe in men. You still believe there's a man out there for you. You know, considering that most, sadly, also heartbreakingly, most women have been through what you've been through, and that most of them, you know, permanently have this projection of men as being terrible, which is understandable considering the circumstances. Beyond just knowing a couple of men that are good, what makes you able to do that?
I just
Have you always done that, or was there a phase of your life where you were just completely, you know, pissed off and angry at the masculine?
I would say honestly, so my first love relationship was abusive. So when I was 16, 17, 18, that was when I had my first abusive relationship. And then when I left that relationship at such a young age, I was then met with violation almost immediately. And then I spent probably the next 5 years like man angry, validly so. And I was single and alone and just like not even looking in that direction. Any man that met my eye, I was scared of. And I would say now, coming out of a long term relationship, it's 10 years later. I've had a lot of therapy. I've connected with spirit. And when I've asked spirit about it, the one thing I asked was, why have I been more sorry than I've ever been safe? And the response from spirit was, Mother Earth never promises safety. And I think so many people are always looking for safety. That's what they want to find in partnership. But I don't think earth, love, relationships are inherently safe. It's all a risk.
Yeah, I think that I hear you and I get it. I think the potential pushback, I'm just from woman here, and I'm maybe there's more nuance we can create here. Is that can you guard yourself against the risk of emotional and physical abuse?
Yes.
Right? Because that to me, like if because I can track. My wife feels safe. Things are usually smooth sailing, and then every now and then, every couple of weeks, I say something very stupidly, like a human, and it causes her to feel very unsafe. And when she's unsafe, then it's like then we're in some shit. So like I can't guarantee her safety, but I can guarantee that I won't abuse her.
That part. Like, okay, so let's talk about that. Not every person can be 100% safe for someone else all the time. And that's not to say I'm saying someone's going to be emotionally or physically abused. And what safety means to one person is very different than another. And if someone is willing to, I'm trying to like unpack moments, even where maybe I've been an unsafe person. And I'm honestly trying to think of that, but like I think genuinely I've been safe with every person I've ever encountered. Um, but I think there are these moments where like, what is that line of safety? When someone else's anger, okay, great example. Anger is something that when we experience it from another can feel very unsafe. Is anger inherently a bad emotion? No. But it's when aggressiveness and violence comes in that it's no longer a safe emotion to be experiencing with someone else. And can someone move through anger and still create safety? And how do we even process that? I'm trying to even sit with that more because I'm saying this and I'm like, I like actually haven't thought about it in this context. So I'm glad we're unpacking it. But I think for many, it's fear and anger that I think create the most lack of safety, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to this also. With my partner, if I speak from anger and fear, no matter what I say, that vibration is gonna make her feel unsafe. I think most women are that way because there's a switch in their brain that unconsciously says danger. Like, from evolutionary psychology, a man's angry and full of fear, that's not a good sign. And I think there's this switch in women's brains that goes, so even though I'm not abusive at all, that she'll still feel that way if I leak complete fear and anger. And almost all women I've noticed are that same way, which is that, I mean, unless they're very wounded, but if there's leaked fear and anger, they'll feel unsafe. But then, really, I think the question that is worth exploring is that their work. If I'm not gonna, if a man's not gonna, of course, not gonna be abusive, and they can trust them, and if they feel super unsafe by them expressing anger in a contained way, then that's kind of their work.
Let's even think about this. My dog, for example, if I'm angry or I raise my voice, she's afraid. And not that I do that often, but like, say I stub my toe and I go, oh shit, and I exclaim really loudly, she cowers and runs into the other room. She's not a man and she's not a person, but she still responds to that frequency. And so if we even take like just animal nature, we all respond to intensity, anger in the same way. We cower. Why? She was abused. When I rescued her and they gave me the rundown of everything she went through, my first thought was, gosh, what would the rescuer say about me? If I was someone saw my little report card of all my trauma, how would they think I would act? How would they think I would be experiencing things? This is the sweetest, most loving dog I've ever had. She's the most traumatized dog I've ever had, and she's the most loving. And yet, if I'm dysregulated, she won't go to the bathroom. She can sense when my nervous system is off. If I'm hyper vigilant and I'm watching my surroundings, so is she. And so we can see it in all realms of life. There is this inherent connection with lack of safety and expressions of anger or fear.
What's a fair place for women to get to with that, in the sense of like what would actually qualify as unsafe from a man?
I think that a grown man should never raise his voice to a woman, no matter how angry. I think if a grown man is angry, I think he needs to go and sit with himself. I don't think that anger is something that needs to be immediately unpacked with a partner. I think that anger is something to sit with. And I think that anger is something that is only moved through the body physically. I think if like the most healthy thing that someone could do when they're angry is find a physical way to move through it that doesn't affect another person. And I think if someone is now, I would say conversely, if a partner is experiencing fear, I think that is something that can be met in partnership. I just think that anger is the most dangerous emotion, but one of the most healing emotions we have to move through in this life.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, another piece that I think is important to add here, is that branching off the thing that kind of what I've understood about this dimension is that safety is not guaranteed, and then also one of the most profound things my guru ever told me when I was speaking about certain things that frustrate me in my own marriage. What he told me was that, and it's simple and profound, that this dimension isn't perfect. That things will never be perfect in this dimension, and it's how we can kind of create space for that we can survive it. So it's like I can't my own marriage has helped me is that I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking at what I can tolerate. So it's that's important to know here, is that you can't, no one you find, no man, no woman finds is gonna be perfect. And if they're waiting for perfect, then they're gonna be in for a pretty shitty ride. What they should look for is then knowing that you can't find something perfect. What is it that you should look for?
I think what we should all look for is someone who's compassionate and understanding, who, it's so funny you talk about the perfect piece because every time I tell like family members or friends or people about what I'm looking for, the first thing they say is, well, nobody's perfect. And I said, did anything I say equal perfect? Did anything I asked for here say I need a perfect person? In fact, if I'm seeking depth, what creates depth is trauma. That's not perfect. When I say I want someone who has empathy, well, most people develop empathy through having a traumatizing experience. Most people have empathy because of the depth of their own emotions. When we're looking for partnerships who are safe, it's probably because they've seen a lack of safety or they've seen scary instances where they want to be that rock. And those moments also aren't perfect. When I do find people who are like open minded to my spirituality, I see two very different sides. When someone's like excited about what I do typically, I either get I was like, perfect, let's go to a haunted hotel and see if we can get possessed. Ew. And then on the other side of it, I see the guy that's like, let's do mushrooms on a mountaintop and awaken together. And what you and I both talked about was like, yeah, that's boy energy. It's, ooh, this is a game. And it's like, there's, when it comes to masculinity, I think there is an element of seriousness. I think we can all live life and be fun loving and be, lighthearted about it. But there is a sense of someone who takes you seriously and someone who can like sit with you in those hard moments and like help you grow.
So what is the sacred masculine for you? If you could drop an archetype.
If I could drop an archetype on sacred masculine, it doesn't to me when I think about it, I don't necessarily expect someone to be the most spiritually awake human being. I for whatever reason, I don't know if I have seen that in a man who is single and available. And I think that's because women are the awakeners and they can awaken you in partnership. And I also think a sacred masculine is somebody who has a ton of grief. And I say that because the depths of love is the depth of grief. We're never going to escape grief in this life. Grief is love. It's the love we can't give to that physical person anymore. And if someone can meet their grief with remembrance and honor and sacredness, that to me shows a really sacred masculine. A really divine masculine is somebody who can also sit with me in my grief, honor the work that I do. And I just haven't found somebody who can take my work seriously because they're like, well, what does that look like every day? Are you going to just be seeing ghosts everywhere all the time? No. But I might be closing my eyes and hear the voice of your grandma telling me a sweet story about you. I might be cooking dinner and I'm hearing my best friend whisper in my ear, I miss this recipe. And I smile. Like it's not scary. And I think that I scare men often, and I don't intend to. But I think that a divine masculine is someone who's not afraid, but sitting in reverence.
Makes sense. I never thought about it that way. So you think that the degree to which a man has been able to handle grief with depth, not shy away from it and sit with it and be with it, is the degree to which he can handle what the you or
I think the degree to which a man can meet his own grief and honor it is also the degree and depth that he's able to love. And I look for partnership in people who've experienced great loss.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because, when I feel the most firm and strong in my masculine, is when I don't have any fear of loss. Even unconsciously, right? Because if I fear loss, if I fear losing my partner, then that's when I get, needy and not in a good way, and anxious, and you're not really present. Your thoughts are all racing, and I only lost that when I actually properly grieved, because then there's no fear of loss. There's nothing to attach to, right? Because if my wife wakes up one day and is like, "I'm out of here," I would be upset, but I'd be like, okay, she decides to go do something stupid. There's no fear of that anymore. It's like, okay, I can grieve this, and that causes me to actually be firm in myself, to stand on business, as they say. That I think that is an important place to get to as well. Is that how do you want to see strength showed by the masculine? Because the one thing I've actually sat with, which is I think confusing for a lot of men, makes sense to me. I'm curious your take on it. Is that all women say in their minds, I want this sweet, kind man. And then time passes and they lose all respect and attraction for him. It's common. I see it in my patients and people all the time. I've been there, and it's the more firm I've stood, not in a disrespectful way, but the more firm I've stood in my no when I really meant it. Like, I can't do that. I can't do this. The more I'm okay with disappointing my feminine if I have to, not because I want to, but I have to. But that leads to some increase in arousal.
Mhm.
The more she can feel the man's being real and honest in his experience versus just always pleasing her and always coddling to her. And the more when I was doing that, it was when I couldn't grieve because I was afraid of loss. So anyone's wrapping it up by saying, "What's your take on that?"
I think you're describing the nice guy, the guy who's nice that just wants to say yes. That's gonna. Nothing irks me more. Nothing makes my skin crawl more than a man who is telling me exactly what he thinks I want to hear. Because one, he's usually wrong on what I want to hear, and that's where like honesty comes in. I I hate this sounds so. I want to be told no. I want someone to say, "Hey, you might not to necessarily put me in my place, but to check me on my bullshit." Because that's what I do with clients all day. And the thing is, I'm an intuitive woman. Unfortunately for you, sir, I can read your mind. I know that you're telling me a lie. I remember looking at a past partner and thinking to myself, and I wish I would have listened to it sooner, was I don't think he's ever actually believed me. I don't think that he trusts me. We're arguing about something where and this isn't from the I need to be right, but I knew I was accurate in what I was saying. And this person like, could not trust me, even though I knew I had the factual information. And that little seed of doubt and thinking, he doesn't believe me. It was that moment of he's telling me what I want to hear, why. And I saw it with it. It was like he likes the idea of me and the physicality of me more than the reality of who I am. And like even in the breakup and hearing how he described me, I was like, oh my God, I've been with this person for 4 years and he doesn't even know me. He thinks I'm in la la land and delusional. But he's just gonna keep letting it go on because why? Because I check all the boxes that he had on his wish list for a partner, but the reality of that is so much grander. And I would even say to him, like the nice guy front, and like saying that no and hearing someone's truth. Yeah, I do think that creates intimacy. I do think that creates vulnerability. Like for me, if I'm like sexually attracted to someone, it's usually when they're being the most honest. It's usually when they're being vulnerable that I'm like, "Oh, I gotta have it." Like, if I meet someone and they're telling me their true and honest feelings, and even grief, especially for me, and it's not even just grief for the loss of somebody, but maybe it's like the loss of the longer we live, the more we're gonna lose, but also the more opportunities we have to love. And so it's like both things are always gonna go side by side.
There has to be a difference in an arousing way for a man to be vulnerable and honest in an experience versus a non-arousing way. So when you say that, like, what's the delivery of that that you think is the most sexy in a man in that experience, and what's like not? So it's very different from me. There's different ways of handling that.
It's just seeing someone in their authenticity and their truth that I find very attractive.
Okay.
Like somebody who's really like owning where they're at that day, not the empty promises of who I'll be tomorrow and oh, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to make your dreams come true. I'm going to be this. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do all these things. That to me gives ick. That to me is an immediate energetic shut off. But if someone is sitting there saying like, I feel stuck, I feel like I'm ready for change. I want to grow. Someone who's actually open minded to my guidance. He can actually, so many women, like, they feel like they tell their partner, you know, it'd be a great idea if this, you should do this. And then the partner is immediately like, well, I don't know. And then they hear it from another man. They're like, that's a great idea. And you're like, I said that 3 weeks ago.
I did.
I just told you that. If someone could actually like list, like, okay, maybe even this too, active listening. Not listening to respond, but listening to understand. I find that attractive. Someone who's like taking in the information and not thinking, okay, how am I going to respond to this? But rather like actually trying to understand what's being said.
So let's unpack now for you. Okay, you're in a state right now where you're calling this person in. Um, how you go about the process? How you go about the process of calling them in, and how do you feel in that process?
There is something that, me and my really divine feminine girlfriends, like the ones who are like really spiritually awake and the conversations that we have, like part one, I'm calling in the future father of my kids. So I'm thinking about my soul baby. if I get to have one, if I get to have a baby one day. We'll see. But when I think about that, who's the right partner for that child? Definitely not the reiteration of my father, I'll tell you that much. And what that means is also somebody who's present, like consistent. I think when women are wanting safety, we're wanting consistency and stability. We want to see somebody who's got their shit together and who consistently shows up. I also feel like in calling that in and trying to find that partner, I'll be honest, I'm a little lost. What I am doing is I'm praying every day about it. And what I'll do is like I take some flower petals because one of my favorite movies in the entire world is Practical Magic. It's a big motivator as to why my business is called the Practical Pisces.
Never seen it.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch it. You will love it. It is one of the best movies of all time. But there is this part where she writes this letter and she's like, I'm writing the most perfect man because he doesn't exist. And she writes down all these things that could not be possible in a man. And she takes flowers and she blows them to the moon. And every time I'm thinking about my partner, it's like in my mind, I'm having this like dialogue with him in the ether where I'm saying, like, I'm calling him in that way. I'm thinking about, I want someone who has a sense of humor, who makes me laugh, who wants to explore this world of spirituality with me, somebody who's grounded and calm, somebody who's spontaneous and adventurous. And it's not perfection. None of those things. It's just alignment. Because I'm looking for what I have within me. And conversely, I'm looking for someone who has qualities that I don't have. Sometimes what we crave in a partner is often those things that we don't have within ourselves. It's like, I'm trying to think of some good examples of that. Like do I have upper body strength? Not a ton, if I'm being honest. I would love to have more, but there's something about somebody who has that physicality and strength, but also like that emotional fortitude to kind of watch me have a freak out. Like if I need to crash out and just cry, because I'm a crier. I cry constantly. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. And somebody who can actually sit with me in that and say, like, you're beautiful right here. And I can witness you and be here with you. And I'm not going to go in the other room and leave you to it. Or somebody, when you're laying beside them and you're crying, that turns over and says, are you okay? Can I be here for
Yeah.
you?
Why is that so attractive for the feminine? For me, I don't know. Honestly, I've sat with this, and there's many theories, and I follow different Hindu mythology that explains it certain ways. But like, I've noticed the highest aphrodisiac for the feminine in me, in my experience, has been like how unswayed, still, and loving can I be when they're swaying a lot, when they're on luteal and they're really on a crunchy day. I'm just standing there like, throw it all at me. I'm not moving. I'm here. I'm not moving. When I do that successfully, which is consistent now, thank God. It's like there's like a massive heart explosion. But then on those days where sometimes the human in me is like, if I'm like if I have a bunch of sessions in a day, a bunch of podcasts, I'm like I'm like I get home and I'm like I'm at capacity, and it's like wow. Sometimes I'm like I don't react well, and in those days it's like a little bit of respect is gone. And I come back from it. It's all right. I come back from it, but I notice that. Why is that? Why is that so appealing to the feminine, where she can have that luteal day of just going wow, super stormy, and the man just there like, yep, throw it at me.
Okay. I think I'm going to give an example because I love metaphors, but I think about, this might sound silly. Maybe this is me living in the desert, but I think about the desert has two things that are always a constant: a saguaro that never falls and a monsoon that always arrives. And there's something about the steadiness, the groundedness, and also not feeling like we're too much. This society, and God love my mother, but like, I've always been too emotional for everyone in my life until maybe adulthood when I was choosing friendships and my chosen family. But feeling like we're not too much and feeling like we can change, we can grow, we can evolve. Because I can promise you, every woman you've ever met is a different person every day. Every year, she evolves into a whole new person. We might have these core traits within us that are a constant, but the way our hormones move us, we need to be able to go from like the sensual goddess who's ovulating, who just wants to be worshipped, to I need to fall apart. I need to be in shambles and I just need someone to be here and be a constant. Something about that steadiness and someone to be that like rock is really what we want. And I know that in partnership, like again, we may lose our partners, they may leave, they may die, like we'll never know. But to have that steadiness and that groundedness allows us to be ourselves fully, which is ever changing. I think it also boils down to like on like a primal level for men and women, we're all afraid to be abandoned. Why? Because community meant safety and survival, right? Like on a base level, an abandonment wound is the fear of dying because if you're alone in the desert, you probably won't survive. So if we just take that, that's just a legitimate nervous system experience. And what women want to know is I can be my most intense and my most soft and you'll still be here. And that makes us know that I'm loved at every stage of who I am. And like even thinking like in sickness and in health, like I could have cancer and you'll still be here. Like I could have, do you know how many women are like, oh, if I lost my leg, would you still love me? Like if I, got sick, would you still love me? We want to know that we're lovable outside of this body, outside of what we look like, outside of the emotions, that all parts of ourselves are lovable.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the line though? Like, is there a line
I
on
think
the
that's just
chaos, the feminine expression, and its height? Is there a line? I always sat with that. I honestly don't know the answer. I've explored many things in life. I explained to you, some of the hardest spiritual questions on about density and ETs and all that, but still I don't know the answer to, what's the line of the feminine where it can honestly be like this. This is too much. Because I hate saying that, and
no.
I never say
I think
that.
it's valid.
But
I think
but
it's
I'm like,
valid.
what's the actual line? 'Cause I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. I don't think ask any man, they don't know the answer to that. So what's your answer? What's the line?
I think and let's take men and women out of it for a second. At no point should your intensity harm another human being.
What do you mean by harm? Like
Like,
physically
I,
harm?
I think if a woman is being intense, it shouldn't become an attack and a projection on a man.
What's the line I have? Which is maybe an answer to that. It was you can be. I told my wife this. You can be angry. You can be upset. But if you ever name call me or disrespect me, I'm not gonna tolerate it. So you can get angry at me. You can be emotional. The minute it gets a name calling and disrespect, I'm out. Period.
I think there's respect. I think that's what it boils down to. The line is when you start to disrespect your partner and belittle them or make them feel smaller or make them feel less than because of what you're experiencing emotionally. And I think there are actually, and this is not to attack my fellow women, but I think there are a lot of women who, when they're in their anger, it's like they're actually trying to push someone away. And it's like they're trying to push them away to see if they'll stay. And rather than pushing someone away, it's like when I'm thinking about like my peak emotional intensity wasn't when I sit with it is often not about a partner, but my own wounds I need help healing. And then that partner is there to help you heal those things. And and that's just my experience. I'm not saying that's everyone's. Maybe they are mad at their man, but why? And they maybe need to unpack that. But for me, it was always like trying to heal my own shit and just needing someone to sit with me in that trauma and just hold space for me. But I think the line is genuinely like if you a projection. Like maybe are you really upset because of that person, or are you making it about them because you don't want to deal with your own shit?
Makes sense. But sadly, a lot of people don't have that awareness. Anyways, so to continue on your process of finding that person is also, I'm assuming that whenever you don't see those qualities you've described and beautifully detailed, that it's an automatic no. Like you're really not gonna settle for anything that you feel like is not your best.
I'm trying to get there.
Are you trying to get there? You're not there?
I would say it this year has taught me my no a lot more and I've been faster to my no, but I find that I can always see the light in anybody. And so
Mm.
sometimes I might feel that no and I'm like, well, let's give them a little bit of time and it never goes anywhere. So like I feel like my capacity
But
has
why? Why do you go there? Why do you feel like you should give it more time? What thoughts do you tell yourself in that moment? Or you intuitively know it's a no, but your ego
okay.
mind tries to convince you it's a yes.
I'm gonna give you a funny story. to help explain a little bit?
I'm going here because all women I hear go through the same thing, same process. So I'm just curious about it.
One, because we want to see if a man can get past his own stuff, can get past his own ego. Because sometimes people start there because their ego is the shield of protection. And and not everybody surrenders their ego immediately. Not everybody surrenders their shields immediately, right? And so we try to give somebody the benefit of the doubt of like, can they pull through this? And I'm going to give a silly story because I think every woman is having this moment. It's like going on a date. I went on this date with this guy who seemed really nice. Our first date was fantastic. Though I still had this feeling like, I still felt like, like I even texted my friend, how'd you feel about the date? I don't think he's it, but I'm going to give it a little more time just to see maybe I haven't seen enough. You can't know enough from somebody on the first date to really assess compatibility. When you go on one date with someone, you don't know them. And I'm not saying I want to fully lean into this. I'm just saying from like my experiences and where I've been, right? And I remember going out with this guy. The first date was beautiful. We went painting in the park at sunset. He brought canvases and acrylic paints, and it was so sweet. And he was so kind. And it was the first date, and he was listening. And I was like, this is great. I feel like there's something not happening. Then the next date, I could see he was really starting to look at me. And it was like, then he shifted. He started to think I was too good for him. He started to judge me and pick at me and try to make me feel less than. And I was like, oh. And in that moment, I started to try to shift my mindset as how do these small behaviors expand over time? Because sometimes we see these little, small, tiny bad behaviors and we're like, maybe that'll go away. Oh no, babe, it will expand. It will get worse and it will become a bigger thing. And that playful teasing is going to turn into judgment, is going to turn into a rift between you in 6 months, a year, 2 years. And trying to tune into, can I give someone the grace to expand and open up and take their walls down and give them that time and that compassion? I think that's valid. And then there's also, where are you seeing red flags that should be an immediate no? Because all of a sudden, what went from this beautiful, sweet, amazing first date, and then somebody seeing the depth of the woman they have in front of them and literally falling to shambles and trying to tear her down so that she's on his level, is then where things shifted. And honestly, that happens to me a lot. It's like someone's really excited to meet me. They think I check all the boxes. And then they're like, how can I take her down a peg and bring her to my level? And that's when my no comes in.
Yeah, but I feel like you're intuitive enough. Like what those times when you on a first date have known there was a no. Were you ever wrong?
Nope, never wrong. So I really do need to listen to it more. And I think I'm there now, but it took getting back out there and a few times of testing that intuition to see where it played out. And even those moments of thinking, I feel like he's not telling me something. We're always right. That immediate no was always right.
Yeah. So my take on this is because you do hear of cases, which is because I always, I mean, I'm the kind of person that says if your intuition says I'm like that, annoyingly so. Like even with my own friends, like if my friends introduce me to a potential new friend, I mean to them like within 3 seconds, I'm like, yeah, I'm not for me. And if you ever if you invite this person around, I'm not coming. Not that you can't have them around, but I'm just like that. If I'm no for someone, I know it's no. Like I've been right 98% of the time, so I'm like I'm not doubting that. I'm that way, and being that way has changed my life dramatically. Like I've wasted so much time, money, and effort, and pain trying to be like, maybe I'm too harsh, so I just don't buy into that bullshit. Maybe that's my own bias. I'm like that. It's a no for me immediately. It's never going to be a yes. Uh, I think my intuition is the first instinct. However, that also comes from years and years and years of inner work and knowing my intuition is just my ego, and knowing what's projection. So I say that if you've done the work as a woman, you know your intuition very well. I would trust it, but it's very different if you haven't done that work, and it could be a projection. Like you feel you feel unsafe due to trauma, and so that's a different story. So I think you're definitely intuitive and done the work enough where that immediate hit is worth trusting.
Yeah. And it's like,
I just hear the same story over and over again of women being like, oh, I should give him another chance, and then because then they hear that 1 in 100 story of some guy making out of the friend zone, and they're like, "Oh yeah, worth the wait." I don't buy it. That's my own bias.
I would say, honestly, of all the things, like that intuitive no, absolutely. Should I listen to it? Of course. The other part that what I will listen to every single time, that first kiss will tell you everything you need to know about a person.
Why?
Because there's something about, like, okay, went on this date. It was a great date. We got along on a lot of levels. Travel a lot, get to the end of the date. And I remember kissing him. I felt nothing. But it wasn't like he was technically doing anything wrong. It wasn't like it was technically bad. There was just nothing that pulled me in more. And I was just, yeah, you know what? It didn't work. Didn't feel it. And I think with that right person, like, or at least even like a soul connection, you're gonna feel something. You're gonna feel that pull, that magnetism, that spark, and you're going to open up. But there, when it literally feels like the kiss is empty, that's when I'm an immediate no. It goes no further after that point. If I don't feel anything in that moment, like that tells me everything I need to know.
Where do you think your inner work lies in this process of calling them in? What do you think you have to face and work through at this moment to call in the right person?
I think I have to honor the sacred aloneness that I'm in right now. I think that, to me, what's interesting is all my life I've had a big family. I've lived around a lot of people. I'm living alone for the first time in my life. And I have to know what it means to be alone so that I know what it means to be with my person. And loneliness is I felt alone laying beside somebody. I felt alone in a house filled with people. So that feeling of loneliness, it's like I've needed to sit with it. And I think right now, I don't think my man's on a dating app. I in fact saw a statistic that said 65% of people on dating apps are in a relationship. And I was like, "Oh." I don't know if that stat is like, I just saw it and I honestly believed it because I was like, I think there's people who are trying to leave their partnership and they're trying to see what options are out there first. I think there are people who are married who are trying to use those to get free sex labor from women. And I had to be like, okay, the first step of me finding my person is probably not a dating app. I'm not trying to judge dating apps. People who found relationships on there. I just think for me right now, that's not where my person is. I think that I need to follow the impulses that come to me at this time of who I want to be. Like, for an example, I'm trying to run towards the things that scare me, and not necessarily in harmful ways, but I saw this burlesque class that was happening in my town. And my first thought was, oh my God, I would never do that. And then I was like, maybe I should. Maybe I need to embrace that side of myself. So I went dancing. I went out with friends. Like, I, oh, I don't think I should go on that hike alone. Maybe I should and connect with nature on my own. Because if life is inherently not safe, like, why am I not letting myself experience everything, knowing anything could happen? You get struck by lightning. Why am I not going on that adventure? Why am I not following these things where my guard goes up or my walls go up? Maybe that's something to do. It. Maybe I'm terrified to go bungee jumping. Maybe I should and experience those things. So, like right now, I think what I need to face is the loneliness. I need to face my impulses of the things I normally would run from, but that I feel called to. I also think I need to face that not every person is going to be cool as, hey, I talk to dead people professionally and I'm really good at it, but that makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I get it. That's something I've carried myself. It's not the for some it is, but it's not the sexiest thing for 'cause I in the past I would I had no issue attracting many women, but then the charge would get kind of neutered when I would say, "Yeah, I'm a spiritual teacher." I do intuitive channelings, etc. And it's like, oh, it's like immediately like I'm some crazy person, and all spark is gone. But like you, it seems like for me, it had to get to a place where I just saw it as a blessing. I was like, oh, thank God. They told me earlier, like, okay, then they're not gonna be able to like me. Fair enough. Don't give a But when I used to make it about me, like, oh my god, I'm not as masculine, and if I do these things and it's not attractive, then I carry the vibration. But I got to places like I really don't give a. If someone can't accept that, then fair enough, no problem.
Like, if I was an accountant, I would be married by now. If I was a bank teller, I would probably be in a relationship already. But God gave me a divine filter.
Yeah, yeah, no, same here. That's what was cool, you know, in the first date with my wife, within 10 minutes, I just stopped giving a at that point. I was like, I'm just gonna be myself fully. Within 10 minutes, I told her, you know, you and I've seen we have past lives together. And within 10 minutes, I told her that. And what was awesome was that she was like, yeah, I know, me too. I see it. I was like, okay, there we go, boom, you know. And then we talk about reptilians and ETs within 5 minutes. So it's like that. That is the what ends up happening if you wait. But it was a lot of experience what you're going through. It was repeated of like finding someone there's attraction, there's a good rapport, and then it's like, oh yeah, this guy's what the f is doing in the world. And then I had to get to a place where I was like, cool, don't give a f. That's who I am. Which sounds like you're at that place where you're that strong in your abilities that you're like, oh, someone can't accept that, and they're being weird about it. Don't give a f. That just means you're not my person.
Yeah. Like, and there's, I mean, so many instances of just like, it's like, I feel like in my dating experience, men will then treat me like I'm the weird one. And then they're the one doing weird, like, okay, when on the date, that guy with the date and the painting and all that, no judgment to him, honestly, on your journey, bruh. But he literally was holding my hand and then picked my arm up and like playfully bit my arm as like a joke. And I was like, you made me feel weird about my time. And then that's what you're doing on your dates, friend. And I'm the weird one. And there's just like I think that, and guys get all weird about like astrology. And I always try to even say too, like, you've got your fantasy football team and I've got my astrology. You've got your favorite players on the team. I have my favorite planets. Why can't we both honor these things that aren't maybe the most logical or the most science? Even though if you actually start to look at science, it continues to back up spirituality. They're testing psychic mediums' brains and they're watching things fire off in the brain that shouldn't. They're watching how the body is affected. Like, we're only getting more and more confirmation of the things that you and I intuitively know now. And we're only being validated more and more as we go. Is it a conspiracy or is it going to be the truth with time?
Everything you're saying to me kind of backs up this theory that I had that worked for me. I'm curious your take on it. Is that, you know, I've always looked the same way. You know, I've thankfully always had good amount of resources, and I wasn't finding the woman I really, the highest quality one I really wanted. And what came to me one day, thank God, was that, you know, spirit or my higher self, or some guide told me that, you know, you're not playing with the right metric of what you want to be your attractor. If you're leading with looks and status and your charm, which you have, that's not going to take you very far. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. That game worked for me. And then what I ended up doing was that what I was like, I think depth is the currency here for the masculine. That the deeper I am as a human being, the deeper I am as a man, and really carry that, the more the highest quality of woman will find me. Because that's what I thought in the moment. And I did that for you know, like you, I was half a year celibate, said no to anyone that didn't have that depth. I just was like, I'm gonna try and make myself as deep as humanly possible as a man, to handle my grief and be with myself. And then my wife came, and then it may be egoistic, but it's like, sure, there could be a guy that has more money than me and more attractive than me, but I can guarantee that no one will carry, very few will carry the depth I have. And that's a very significant metric because that's really who I am, right? If you're leading with depth as a man, you're leading with you. You're leading with realness. If you're leading with what you have, if you're the way you look or cash or car, that's not really you. I think that's what women are actually craving is men with that depth. There's enough men with resources who look good. There's enough of those nowadays, but there's very few who have the depth to really be that anchor. And how does that sound? Is that like a valuable journey for the masculine?
Status, money, looks, those fade. Those can you can lose any one of those in a second. You could lose your looks. You could be in a fire and have your whole face burned. You could go bankrupt. All of this stuff and material bullshit with fate. I'm not saying don't want nice things or a nice house or, money or stability. And I don't want to deny that abundance. But those things come and go. But depth is something that lasts. Depth is something that, like, I've been put in front of men with money. My friends are like, oh, yeah, like, you're the one that's going to get us out of poverty, girl. You just need to find you a millionaire. Yeah, but I don't want a transactional relationship. I want reciprocity, and those things are different.
How are they different?
Reciprocity to me is the even exchange of energy. And the guy that's like, I want us to be 50-50 and split everything is also the guy that wants you to clean his house and to do his laundry and to make all his meals and to chip in your half and then to still feel like you're not enough because it's transactional. And I think there's a lot of men who see women as
Is
property.
that really happening still? Are there actually men trying to go 50-50 and they're making you do all the feminine duties?
100%. 100%. That's
Really?
Yes. Yes.
No way.
And what's interesting is like I do want to make money. I do want to be my own woman. I do want to lead my own path. I do enjoy paying for I pay out my own bills now. And I can take care of me and I love to cook. And I actually enjoy cleaning and I enjoy connecting with my partner physically and all of those things. I love to do all those things. I enjoy them. But there is something about energetic reciprocity. What can you give me those things? What honestly, I think bare minimum of a man right now. Do you take something off of my plate? Because
Yeah.
I can do it all on my own. But what are you doing to lighten the load?
Yeah. I just still can't believe that's happening.
No,
Like,
it's happening. I can promise you it's happening.
No, I'm not denying you. I'm just in shock.
I feel like in every relationship, there's got to be give and give. This is not give and take. It's give and
Yeah.
give.
Yeah.
And all my life, and this is not a judgment towards my upbringing. I just think it's a cultural thing. Like all us young women were raised to be the perfect housewife, but also that we have to be our own provider.
Yes.
And so it's like I actually love those maternal, like, dude, I like those things. I find joy in cooking. Like that's my love language. Like I want to cook for somebody. Because it's just another way of giving love and I want to express in that way. But for someone to be like, all right, here's the receipts on da 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 da, like that to me, like, even in my last relationship, even when it ended, he's like, well, you owe me for this, this, and this. And I was like, what about the hours and hours of cooking and cleaning and that I did for you? Does that not count on the receipts? No, because it's not transactional. It's interesting. I think a lot of women like want that like provider energy, but what we really want is someone who takes action and isn't just empty promises. Because what you do for, oh, I hurt my knee and I want the PT and you set it up, you are showing her, I take action and I stand by my word and I take care of you. It's not necessarily for her or women about the money. It's that you do what you say you're going to do. There's so many men, and I think I actually think men genuinely want to do the things they say they're going to do. They just don't follow through because they don't have the capacity or they don't have the desire to. How many times my man used to tell me, I thought about getting you flowers and then I didn't. Or I thought about doing this for you, but then I wasn't sure. And I'm like, just follow through, brother. Like, come on. Like, this is just wanting to see action and to take something off my plate. Make the load lighter, and I will shower you with all the love that I have. If you water this garden, I'll give you flowers. It's just that simple.
It's very, very important to hear from men. I honestly think that that if a man can do that, that he wins really. It's so rare. It's so lacking. But what's interesting to me is that like you're saying that, and it's beautiful, and I agree. But then I want to close here, which is a lot of women find themselves in the situation you were in, where they intuitively know these things are annoying and up, but they stay there. For example, like he's saying he can do a lot of things, but never does. You're not seeing that capacity for action, which is really the masculine duty. What can you say to women who find themselves in situations to, like, you get in a place where you're like, I can't do this anymore? Like, what does it take for a woman to get there? To not accept the whole 50-50, I'm going to do everything for you while you give me nothing.
The first thing I'm thinking is when I ended that relationship, I didn't grieve him. I didn't even grieve our dogs that he took. I don't grieve all of my shit that he took to Goodwill and donated. I don't grieve the money that I lost in the relationship. I grieve the children I dreamed of with that partner. I grieve the life that I thought we were building. I grieve the future. And I have to take ownership of that. I'm sad about the dream that went unfulfilled. And I'm grieving that part. And if I could tell any woman, it's you'll grieve what you didn't have more than you'll grieve what you had. And if you could stop listening to the word salad of the empty promises and actually tune into this question I have is, if nothing changed today, would you stay? If the relationship is what it is right now and it never changed, would you stay? And most of the time it's no. Most of the time it's no. If he's going to be exactly like this in another 5, 10, 20 years, would you still be in it? And if you can
Yeah.
answer that question with yes, then you're with your person. If you have even a shadow of a doubt, it's a no. And it's time to pack up your things and go.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta love the man he is now and the man he's becoming. That's a requirement. You know, a lot of
And
women only love the man he could become, but never actually who he is.
And there's this other message that Spirit still gives me and used to give me at that moment was, my heart is patient, but it's not waiting. Waiting is hoping that something's going to change overnight, and patience is seeing growth over time. So where's the growth? Like, what is the evidence of growth? He might tell you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But is he actually taking steps towards that? And what do those steps look like? Can he communicate to you those actual steps?
Yeah. Very, very important points to look for. Yeah, thank you for being brave enough to really be yourself at the risk of what you call sacred loneliness. 'Cause I think that's a lot of women face, is that they're so terrified of being alone that they disguise parts of themselves that they don't believe could attract the right person in their minds. So, all kudos and power to you for really just honoring who you are and shining in that. Being brave enough to have faith that the right person will find you in that expression. It's worth it, right? I think you got in a place where hopefully a lot of women get to, which is that the pain of being alone is better than the pain of being with someone where you can't be yourself with and you feel like you're settling. And that you're going to risk that temporary pain of loneliness to find a person you can really feel yourself with. So thank you for being brave enough to show that. And tell us where we can find you, where people can connect with you if they want some intuitive readings or just to say what's up.
Yeah, my page is at the Practical Pisces. Come find me. I do live readings. I've got tons of different beautiful session offerings. Like, I love connecting with amazing spiritual women who are needing guidance in their life. If you're in Tucson, I teach local classes on psychic mediumship, and I'm constantly looking to build community. And I just really appreciate you all for hearing my story and honoring me. And just a reminder that you would rather be alone by yourself than feeling alone beside someone who doesn't see you.
Facts. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more content, please click this video right here and don't forget to subscribe right here. Thank you.